Excuse me, I have to sit for this. I can't stand for long. Jason, alcoholic. Man, there's a lot of faces out there. A lot of people I love out there in this group. So I've got a home group, Sobriety First group. Susan won the basket from us. I have a sponsor. I sponsor people. My sobriety date is November 8th, 2018, which I am truly grateful for. And I have stage fright, so I'm a little nervous. So I'm going to do what I was told to do, which is, God, please remove this fear. And then I get busy talking with somebody else about it. And then I look for somebody to help. So I'm going to talk with you guys about it. Let's see. I'm used to shaking through this stuff. So I used to be an addict as well. I'm in a couple programs. One of them's Al-Anon and one of them's CA. But I'm supposed to stick to my primary purpose and tell you about my AA experience. I am definitely an alcoholic. And I think I was right from the rip. I have never been comfortable in my skin. So we'll start at the beginning. I was born at a very early age, and apparently I thought it was a horrible idea because I cried about it for a long time. I think I was like 38 when I stopped, 2 years sober, something like that. This stuff finally kicked in, you know. So I was born to a mother and father. Usually that's how it goes. They both had 6 brothers and sisters, and my mom had another son. Right, you know. I have an older brother. He's got a different dad, and he has 9 uncles and aunts. And alcoholism doesn't really run in my family. It does gymnastics. Okay, if they're not an alcoholic or an addict, they're on a spectrum of some sort, okay? So where it says in the book, this life we think is, normal, kind of like, I know no other life. I really didn't. I didn't have a chance. And I didn't realize that until I got to Al-Anon, and that's for families of alcoholics. And Jesus, I didn't, I worked the steps, and I realized I was an alcoholic and all that, but I didn't realize how much it ran through my family and how much it affected me. But anyway, so my mom and dad met in the Air Force, and they were on their second date 2 weeks in, and my mom had a dream that my dad was the devil. And this is my family, okay? So my dad, on their second date, he said, "You think I'm the devil, don't you?" And she said, "Yeah, that's so weird." And so then he asked her to marry her on that date, and they've been married ever since. So being in the Air Force, they like to move a lot, which was my biggest resentment. I was never able to make friends and keep them for long, which was something I had to work on when I got in recovery, was having deep and meaningful relationships. They were all surface relationships when I got here. So anyways, I was born on an Air Force base in Georgia, and we moved around every 2 years, ripped up roots and just kept moving. We'd go back to Florida every, 4 years or so. And that's where my whole family, extended family is. So I'll just share a few things because I only got 30 minutes and then Tyler's going to tell us. So I'm going to try to keep what it was like to about 10 minutes. But this is the kind of person I was right from the rip. I was 6 years old. We were living in Kansas, and huge apartment complex. And back then, I'm pretty old. So back then we were allowed to just roam around till the light poles turned on. And my brother babysat, and he's about 5 years older. So I was 6 years old. I was just learning to write, and I was outside with a couple of kids, and this person got a brand new blue car. And I was like, I love that color. And so me and my little buddy, we started writing on it with rocks and, drawing and doing artsy stuff. And totally forgot about it, went to the house, was getting ready for bed. And I hear a knock on the door, and my parents, and like things were getting loud, and they called me down there, and there's my neighbors, there's the little boy, and they're like, Jason, did you write on their car with a rock? And my first instinct with the way they were looking at me was like, no, of course not. And they're like, are you sure you didn't write on that car? He says you wrote on that car. I was like, why would I do that? No, I would never do that. They're like, well, you wrote your name. Like, I wrote Jason S. I guess I was practicing for you guys, you know? So Jason S. Alcoholic, probably a liar, a cheat, and a thief from the very beginning. My grand sponsor sat me down and told me that like 2 months into being in the recovery house. You're a liar, a cheat, and a thief still. And I couldn't argue with him. But so my first drink, I don't know. You guys like all say your first drink was magical. Mine was Irish cream, and it had been sitting in my parents' cabinet for 2 years, so it was chunky. It was not pleasant. I did not like that. Now, my second set of drinks, it was those little airplane bottles. Me and my buddy got off school. First, we tried something else, and we were shooting off little matches at each other out before the bus, and ended up burning down a couple acres. And then after that, we were like, well, let's keep this thing going, and we were going to drink some of those airplane bottles. And we went to the pool, brought a little picnic, and we got pretty drunk off that, and we were like spinning each other around in the hot tub. You go real fast and you get the thing moving. And then we had our picnic by throwing all the lawn chairs and all that, lawn furniture that's at the pools in the pool. And we're just slobbering, eating food. It set me free. That second drink set me free. And I didn't like the hangover. And I kind of stayed away from it for a while until I turned about 15. And I did what we do. I strong-armed my parents into letting me move out, where I'd tell on them for what they did to the cops, And I moved in with my my best friend, whose mom was a dealer. That was the way I was going to roll with my life. And his house was just party central. And I mean, we would keg it up every weekend. And I just remember like the biggest guy that was our friend, the first time I was hanging out with them, we were playing 3-man. It's a dice game, and its point was to get drunk. But I decided, and I'm not a strong guy, but I decided to go up to this 6'6" guy and say, let's swap punches. I mean, that's what it did for me. I'm like, I'm Superman, and I didn't care that I was covered in bruises. So I rolled with that. I rolled with those guys. It was like 15 deep every weekend. We drank every weekend. And I immediately drank to black out. And that's what I got. I blacked out every time, every single time, until I was about 18. And my mom had been saying, Jason, I don't understand why you can't drink like an adult. And I was like, I don't understand what that means. And she's like, have one or two and just relax. You got to power through that. I don't understand drinking. Like, that's just when it gets good for me. I like to overshoot that by a couple feet, And so I just never understood that. But I tried what she said. I was sitting at my brother's house, and I did a couple fingers of whiskey with a couple ice cubes. And I said, that's all I'm going to drink. And it made me angry. I literally had to, at that time, meditate and go to bed because of how angry it made me that I couldn't get another drink. But I had promised myself, I told him, hey, just don't let me drink anymore. So yeah, I didn't have to do that controlled drinking thing. I had already tried it when I got here. Things got bad. Things got really bad. So I decided to go on tour with a bunch of hippies. That was great. I was introduced to psychedelics. I loved it. It kept me away from drinking for a while. Honestly, it did. After a couple tours of doing that, I moved back here to Tennessee. and I moved by a bar, and I moved right behind a bar and worked at a place that had a bar above it, right beside that place. And I proceeded to get drunk for about 7 to 8 years. And things took a pretty bad turn where I was drinking about a half a gallon of vodka a night. And everybody knew to leave my house, which was not a house. It was, one of those little weekly places that we end up in, and they knew to leave when I started beating up the walls. I just was angry and I didn't know how to get it out. And that's what drinking did for me. It allowed me to express all the rage. I either was crying or I was punching walls. That's where I was ending up. So fast forward a little bit, I tried to do some more global relocation. It was let's move on to about 32 years old. I never got in really any trouble except for a couple DUIs. But I avoided going to jail in those places for more than the 48 hours. I just didn't deal with any of that stuff. So at about 32, I ended up turning myself in to try to get my DUIs done. I'd been to frequenting some very, very bad places, and my parents were like, you should move back in with us and try to get your life straight. And I did. I went and got a job and I did the things. I started a business with my dad. It failed. I went back out because, my dad would reward me in the business with a couple bucks and a couple beers. And one of the things my dad does is he's a photographer. He does nature, weddings, product, moonshine. One of them was moonshine. So we would have moonshine all around the place, and he'd be taking pictures and bringing it back of their new product. And, he would leave to go do some business work, and I'd get that beer reward. And I'm trying to take it easy. But once I've had a couple beers, it's time to pop open that moonshine that is that product and pour a little water in it after I'm done. I can't tell you how many times I did that. And of course, just like I am, one time he brought it back to Smoky Mountain Moonshine over there in Gatlinburg, and they tested it, and it was 2% actual liquor in there. And he's like, Jason, did you touch that? And I'm like, no. Luckily, I didn't write my name on the jars. You know what I'm saying? But that's just the kind of person I was. I was just lying, cheating, and stealing my way through life, and I just didn't know how to stop. Well, I got a DUI that ended up putting me in for a minute. I was in there for about 2 weeks, and I tried to get straight, and I just kept doing that over and over, begging my parents to let me stay, and so I'm getting pretty old and aged, living at my parents' house, and they said there's absolutely got to be something wrong with you. You can't keep a job, you can't focus. You haven't had your own, you've never even owned a house. You've never rented a house. It's always been these weekly things. There's something deeply wrong with you. Let's get you on disability. And I was like, that's a damn good idea. Let's run with that. And so my aunt was staying with us, and she had taken my uncle through getting the process, and she started it up. And I was like, this is great. I'm not going to have to pay for shit. And believe it or not, you could probably get it too if you're an alcoholic. I mean, just so you know, because it is a disease. Well, that didn't work out. What ended up happening was, this is the end of what it was like. So I had a little stuff that, let's just say it made me go fast and be able to drink for a very long time, which I love to do. And I had a little bit of that. And I told my aunt, I said, I got this phone, and with this disability thing, I'm going to need a phone. And she's like, well, I just need to get on another plan and activate too. Let's go down to Verizon and get us both on a plan. I'll pay for it. And I was like, yeah, that's the only way that's going to work anyways, That sounds like a great idea. So we went down there, and this is in Gatlinburg, and this gets really wild. So I have about $25 on me, and this old couple comes up while we're doing this process, and it's just my aunt doing this process basically. So I'm just hanging on. By the way, that was a stolen phone from my dad. So, that's just what I do. She's going through this process. The old couple walks up to me like, we cannot find this bar and grill. It's a tourist town, so it's kind of difficult to find places. I was like, oh, it's right down here. You do this, do that. And they're like, yeah, that's what the thing said, but we couldn't even follow the GPS to that place. And I was like, you buy me a couple of drinks, I will definitely get you there. And they were like, well, that's a bet. And so this nice old couple took me down there, and we had a couple of drinks, and I told my aunt to meet me there. Now, mind you, I don't have a phone. I don't have anything on me. I have a little backpack with a computer I've been working on, and that was about it. And so I'm waiting on my aunt to show up. She doesn't show up, and I'm starting to get really worried that she also, being an old person, can't find her way in Gatlinburg. She can't find this place. And she can't. So she had told me one thing that was very interesting. She said, Jason, she's in one of those little wheelie things. She said, Jason, you can do anything you want. People don't pay attention to you. They just get out of your way when you're disabled, which was like, I was like all about this disabled thing. She's like, you wouldn't believe the things I've gotten away with. And I was like, that's fascinating. Let me just put that away. And so I decided to use it that day. I had a couple bad checks. They weren't good for an account of any sort. And so my thought was, get a couple packs of cigarettes while I'm out here, and go get a burner phone. Find out what's going on with my aunt. And so I went over to the Publix, and I got one of those wheelie chairs, and I came in there like this, And so I'm like, and I go up to the place, and I got myself a phone. The people were very helpful, pulled it right out of the little thing, and I'm just like, thank you. And I go up to the lady at the register, and I'm writing out the check, like just all screwed up. I was playing the part perfect, got my little wheelie thing. And she puts the little check through there, and it's no good. So I was like, that's weird. And so she does it a couple times. Anyways, long story short, I rolled my ass out of there with some cigarettes and a new phone. It was great. I was so proud of myself. But I had no way to get this thing. So I finally got this thing over at the Mellow Mushroom, like hooked up and online. By that time, it's late. My aunt's asleep. I can't get a hold of her. I'm in the middle of town, got nowhere. I don't know what to do. But somebody else that likes to go fast and drink was like, hey, what are you doing? I just got out of jail. And I was like, oh, I don't know, whatever you're doing. And so he picks me up, and we go out there for a while, and I'm introduced to something called Flocka on my way out the door. And if you've ever heard of it, or you ever hear your sponsees talk about it, they need extra help, okay? So you instantly go psychotic for a very long time. Mine was about 2 weeks. I stayed up completely demented. And so I end up, he made a pass at me, that guy, and I didn't know he rolled that way. So I was just like, nah, I ain't gonna do that. He's, you need to get down the road. So I get on down the road with my little phone, and it turns out it was his same burner phone. So the lady that gave me a ride, his girlfriend, it's a weird life, was like, I need to get that phone back to him. She was going to wait for me to get a hold of my aunt, just like, because I shouldn't be out in public. The whole way to that little Walgreens that I'm waiting at, I think a demon's chasing me. I really do. That's it. You see things, you hear things. It's just, I'm out there. All this started with a drink, by the way. All this started with a drink. I always find an 8-ball at the bottom of my glass. So that's the kind of alcoholic I am. Anyways, she takes the phone and leaves me there at like 8 a.m. And I just happen to have a bank account that I told you about, bad checks, but they have an overnight deposit box for me, and I figure I could just hang out there for a while as I figure out what to do. So I'm headed over there. I see a friend. She's working at the little crystals there. She gives me a drink, and I say, will you give me a ride home later? And she said, yeah, I get off at 12. So I have about 4 hours to waste and not in the right state of mind. So I'm hanging out that little bank, and a lot of cops are driving by. And I'm like, I should probably go somewhere else. So I leave my little drink cup there, and I go to Long John Silver's, and I hang out in the bathroom for a couple hours. But while I'm in there, you know, like I'm starting to really think there's a demon coming after me, and he's down in the Long John Silver's basement, which they don't have a basement. But it made sense to me at the time, okay? So long story short, I got a scarf and a couple pairs of pants on. I super glue the pants to myself. I take off a pair of the pants and my shoes and put them under the sink and start filling up the sink with water and the trash can. I'm going to flood the demon that's in the bank or in the bottom of the basement there. And that's when I run to this semi that's like loading Long John Silver stuff out. And I tie myself underneath this semi with a scarf, right? And as I did so, I went by a license plate that was sitting on another truck, and I super glued it to my back just in case, you know, that you get the sparks coming off. You see them in movies. It made sense. Then I realized I was tying myself to an axle, and this wasn't good. So I ran. By this time, it's noon, almost, and there's people going through the drive-thru, and I decide that lady in the van needs to get me out of town. So I open up the door and ask her to give me a ride. And she said, no, I'm not giving you a ride. You need to go. So the cops came about 15 deep as I'm running and took me to jail. And I tried to plead crazy. Didn't work. Threw myself on the mercy of the court. They told me to go to rehab. They let me out after 2 years of spending like a very bad time in a 23-1 cell. And so that ended up me here in Lebanon. And like I went to rehab. Guy told me I was probably too smart for this program. I said, hell yeah. Wait, what? And he said, you need to do something different. I don't know what it was, but I really wanted what that guy had. That guy like called me out, you know, and I just decided to do whatever those people said. So they dropped me off, and I ended up in a really crappy halfway house. I met Paul. He started taking me to some meetings. He started sponsoring me, and I moved into a little better place, Kathy's house, a friend of Bill's. I went up to her husband and said, you know, place I'm at has no accountability. I really need something better. And will you be willing to work with me? And he did. He said, yeah, I got you. I moved in. I got my first home group, and that home group is strong. They do stuff outside of the meetings, you know, like they meet with each other, they hang out, they bowl, they, you know, go to the lake, they get on the boats, they do the things that a home group's supposed to do. They put on events. They're here. They have a basket, you know, and I found what I didn't know I needed, a purpose and connection. We got pretty far into our steps, me and Paul did, and we just kind of paused, and I went ahead and got a different sponsor. His name's Jason. I talked with him before this meeting. He helped me. He prayed with me through this. We did the steps together. A really cool format, a little worksheet book that we did. He did it with a whole group. I've worked the steps with him completely and thoroughly. I got to the 9th step. I shared it with him. He immediately made me call Starbucks. I'd robbed them, and he was like, do something. So I called them, and the place was like, we don't know what to do with that. I was like, yeah, it's about $5,000 I stole from you guys. And they're like, yeah, call the ethics hotline. I did not know y'all had an ethics hotline at Starbucks. Okay, so I started up a little dialogue with them, and they were like, we've never had anybody do that. We don't know what to do with you. And so now, if you go to Starbucks with me, I now have to buy you a drink and the people behind us. a drink until $5,000. And I think I'm at, so this, I don't go to Starbucks much, you know. But I think I'm at like 400. So I got another 4,500, 4,600 to go. So like 10 drinks, you know. So, but he made me do that as soon as I got done with my 9th step. It was amazing. I was like, damn, I got the wrong sponsor. He does not bullshit. I've done a lot of amends since then. All my financial amends. I'll say this. He told me, like, when we were doing this work before we got there, he said, I was terrified of, like, I owe thousands. He said he cut somebody's pocket out and stole their gun and, like $6,000 from him. He's like, I was terrified. He cut their pocket. Okay? I just love that. While they were sleeping. He's like, I was terrified to make these amends, but I got in a car accident as I was getting ready to come on this, and the money paid for, like that I got from the car accident paid for every single one of my amends. And then my boss gave me a company car. I was like, cool story, bro. So when I got to the 9th step, the same fucking thing happened to me. Exact same thing. I got to pay for every bit of my debt that I had on my credit report with the money I got from that. Multiple instances of things I had. Rarely have we seen someone fail who's thoroughly followed our path. So I've still got some amends to make. New ones come up all the time. And I'll share a couple of things I know. I wanted to talk about step 6 and 7 because that's where I'm at in Al-Anon. One of the things I've learned recently, just to close this up so Tyler has time to talk, ready. Are you entirely ready to remove the certificate? The question I was asked is, do you know what ready means? I did not. It means awareness, acceptance, willingness, and action. It's about building character. Yeah, we ask God to help, but we have to build character. A defect of character is different from a shortcoming. You hear that's not. He just used the same word, different words for the same thing. A defect of character is something I'm doing that I should not be doing. A shortcoming is something I'm not doing that I should be doing. So if I throw a piece of trash on the ground at work, that's a defect of character. I knew I shouldn't have done that. But if I see a piece of trash on the ground at work and I'm walking by and I say, that's not my fucking job, and I keep going, that's a shortcoming. Either one of them eat my lunch. I told that to Austin. He picks up trash all the time now. It's ridiculous. Don't become a trash man because of that. But I don't know. After my car accident, I got in Al-Anon. I broke up with a girl. I did my why do I keep picking her kind of thing. And that's what I thought I was going to learn in Al-Anon. But what Al-Anon taught me was that when you're doing your defect inventory, don't forget to do your assets. It's very important. Otherwise, you end up with pride in reverse and beat yourself up. Make sure you look at the things you did good for the day. And that's literally saved my life and my recovery. Today, I'm not a piece of shit. Today, I'm living a good life and I appreciate myself. And I don't know. That's really all I got. I don't know how to do a 30-minute one. That's the best I got. So thanks for letting me share.